Perfect. So, I'm Ben. I'm actually here because they invited me to speak about SMEs, and that's a very big topic for me because over the last century, I've been invited to, I don't know how many different conferences and governments. Actually, I advised 22, maybe even more, governments and ministries around the world. And mostly it was always around how can we actually help SMEs. That's why we had actually at a breakfast a very interesting discussion that the meaning is that most people think that most SMEs are not supported. But actually, I'm also 13 times founder, so I had my own share of building my SMEs and also fucking up. So I'm a serial killer, so take care. Maybe I kill your business, that might be also happening. But also most importantly, I was creating a lot of concepts for economic development. I was creating a lot of concepts on how to help SMEs at scale and help governments to actually help more SMEs. So that's why I'm speaking today here also about all the shared experiences, and I'm very voicing about that. That's why I'm publishing a lot. So you find a lot of all the policy work and all the policy recommendations online. But I guess one of the most disturbing numbers is not even that. I mean, everybody knows that. Who has seen this 50% number that digital transformation projects fail? I guess that has been one of the most cited things on LinkedIn. Raise your hand. Nobody has seen that, really? No, actually, this number doesn't really matter. The biggest problem is what happens afterwards. So you have this exponential problem growth, what I call it. Because an SME always has this problem. It has limited resources, limited time. And if you do one tiny mistake at the beginning, it accumulates. So every bad decision over time accumulates, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And all these SMEs are struggling because of that, because you just have a limited time available for all of that. And one of the reasons is, and actually why I was invited here, is also what can we do to actually help SMEs? And one of the biggest tasks I've ever had was actually coming from a Swiss government. So if anybody is here from the Swiss government, thank you for inviting me back then. I was tasked, how can we help hundreds of thousands of SMEs in Switzerland to digitally transform? I was like, yeah, sure, easy. I mean, it's not such a big task. If you can do it for one company, it's easy. The problem is at scale, and that comes also back to the story that actually somebody was telling me, like, yeah, we do all this stuff for the big corporations, but we always leave out the SMEs. Comes back to a single point, because we don't know the pain of an SME, and it's prohibitively expensive and difficult to actually identify the problems of a company. And what you see here pretty much is nothing else than there are different dimensions in a business. You have different dimensions that matter to a business. Just imagine you're a manufacturing company. Let's say for manufacturing, maybe it's a lot of operations and processes. And for a consulting company, it's a lot of people work. So it's very subjective. It's depending on the stage you're in, how big you are, how many operations you have, which industry you're in. So it's very, very subjective. And it's very hard for a government to help hundreds of thousands of companies because you would need to have all of this information at the same time. So what are we doing? We're creating policies like an umbrella. Most governments I spoke to have governmental programs to support SMEs. And one of the biggest challenges is like we give everybody a little bit of medicine in the hope that this little bit of medicine is helping the SMEs. Because we're just spreading it out. We're just giving everybody a little bit, and we're just hoping like, yeah, it's maybe having a little impact. But the problem is if you don't know the real challenge, and if you cannot compare what is actually out there, or what is the optimum, you cannot do public policy making because you're just actually treating everybody to the minimum that is almost becoming ineffective. And we are speaking about $1.2 trillion invested in direct economic development initiatives in the world. And that's just the official numbers from governments. We are not speaking of economic development on a regional level or a city level. So this number can be actually almost 5 times higher than this $1.2, $1.3 trillion per year invested into that. And literally, I can tell you, after advising 22 governments, we are wasting most of that money. Because yes, it's coming to the businesses, to some businesses in some ways, but we are not helping SMEs. So we can do better. At least I think so. And one of the talks points is also technology. Because we are in an age, I mean, AI is overhyped. We have then also a little panel. We're going to talk a lot about the AI implications and also blockchain implications and new technology implications, what is coming afterwards. But yeah, data helps us to do something. And that's amazing, because what does data and what does technology do? It makes something scalable. And I love scalable stuff because I'm tired of working myself. That's why I want to do something scalable, right? So the machine should be doing it. And I guess this is the big difference. Large corporations can afford McKinsey. They can afford Boston Consulting Group. They pay millions to actually get analysis done, to actually identify, we have these 5 gaps in our company, we need to tackle that, here is a roadmap. For a small company, it's almost impossible to have like 5 or 10 people running around for almost a year in your company and just say like, oh yeah, there's maybe a gap here, there's maybe a gap there. That is simply not possible, but technology can make it possible. And I guess this is the biggest part what we can do. And that's actually also why I spent 7 years now on building something that is actually today not as simple. Because the challenge was, it needs to be comprehensive. Because every business is different, right? Every business is actually very, very different. It was 1,400 different dimensions we figured out. It took 3 years to actually figure out what can we measure, what is the health in a company. It's actually 1,400 dimensions we identified in the core of a company, so it's not even explaining everything. The second part is it should be easy, because no SME is actually kind of like, yeah, I want to have a riddle to solve, and I want to actually learn that for years until I can use it. So it should be easy. The second thing is also, or the third thing, it should be fast. SMEs don't have time, and most of the technology talk and most of the technology bullshit, sorry for the language here, but it's actually about wasting time. It's not adding value to the company. So it should be fast, and that's actually the nice thing about technology. And it should be secure, it should be neutral. And that's also a very big problem, because a lot of people learn that technology is always serving someone's purpose, or data is being used in a fraudulent way, let's put it this way. That's why it was always easier to do stuff as a government, but not as a company. And last but not least, it should be for free for all, right? Because technology is simple, technology is scalable. I can actually offer something for free if I do it right. But that's a challenge. Because if you cannot do that, I don't want to drain more resources from a company that is already almost dying because they don't know what's happening. So we need to give them help when they need it. So what we did is actually we created over the last 6 years with a total project time of almost 7 years. Yes, it took long. I'm not so smart, that's why it took longer. The first business diagnostics platform in the world. It can actually analyze a company in 1,400 different dimensions. It's very easy to handle. You literally just get your team on board. You invite your employees, you invite your managers, you invite your controllers, your accountants, and you pretty much give the system an insight into what is happening in your company. And it's less than 1.5 hours that it takes for an employee, maybe 20 minutes, to actually help the system understand your company. What is happening, your health in your company. And I guess the most revolutionary thing behind it is actually what's happening in behind. Because that's the power of technology, and that's why I loved it, is actually we can use all of this impact and all of these insights, and the machine can actually help us identify, where are you? Where are the others? In which range should you be doing something? What are the most important points? Because who of you can actually analyze in your business 1,400 different dimensions? I mean, even 10 is difficult. But you have so many blind spots. Maybe you're looking more at processes, but you leave out strategy. Maybe you look at innovation, but you leave out the people. So there's always a trade-off in the human mind because we are very limited in what we can process. But a machine is not limited by that, right? So I can use actually the human limitation and augment it with machine. And we can give up to 130 pages of what is going on in my company, what is going on in my industry, and the machine can even learn what is the optimum strategy. Because if we have hundreds and thousands of companies participating, the machine can learn what is the optimum combination. Maybe for manufacturing, it's the processes that matter. So there is a bigger gap in processes. That is a major limitation to your growth. And I guess this is also, I need to cite actually one of my beta testers. It was actually in German, so it's badly translated. Well, it's a bit too awesome, but it's just simply awesome too. So that was actually a story of why we grouped together here with the Global SME Summit. Tomorrow you're also going to hear something that we are signing, because Insights will be launched today. You're actually the first ones that officially see it on the stage. So Thank you. That's really an overview. Thank you so much. And actually, also, if anybody is interested, I mean, we are always looking for partners, business partners, we look for consultants. We work together with 15 different governments and ministries that actually want to implement it for the economic development purposes, economic development agencies. If you have any idea, you know where I am. Not on the stage anymore, but that comes afterwards.